It's been a constant battle for me in the last 8 years, going through a lot of different difficulties and understanding how to worship God in the midst of hardship. And it's, for me, it started in 2010. At the time I was married, my wife kind of strayed from the marriage and basically wanted out of the marriage. And that was hard for me because I got married for life. I didn't even have nothing in me wanted to be done with that. In that same period, about 3 months later, I got a tick bite, which I was unaware of, and I got Lyme disease, which went undiagnosed for about a year. Same period, I was in probably a 3 to 6 month window where, at the time, my business partner I think he was overwhelmed by all that was going on in my life, and just kind of wanted to move away from the situation a little bit, probably because of things he was dealing in his life. I don't know, but at the time it was beyond anything I could deal with, and God really took me to a place where I honestly lost my family, which felt like at the time it was the worst possible thing that could happen to me. And then I ended up, John and Paul are very aware, I got sicker and sicker and to the point where I lost 40 pounds. My gut was shutting down. I really, I couldn't get any help in this area. You'd think with all the ticks in New England, we would have a really good handle on it here. And I finally gave up on conventional doctors. I was on antibiotics for a year and a half. Ended up after this started in 2010. In 2014, I was still in my marriage, but it was on its way out. At that time, she basically told me, we're done, I'm getting a divorce. We had to sell our house, split that. So I took the opportunity. The Lord had been opening up my eyes to a clinic in Florida. And I spent 6 months in Florida. And a lot of that, this whole period, I was overwhelmed, to say the least, with life. It just I felt like he had plucked everything away. And you kind of realize you trust God, but you don't realize you have these underlying things that you also kind of lean on maybe. Yeah. And when they start to get pulled out, you realize, I don't know how much I do trust God. You start to question your own faith. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I went through this whole process of asking a lot of questions. Do I even know God? Is God angry with me? Does God even love me? Am I just, do I just know the language of Christianity? Am I a true believer? Because, I must be a pretty bad person because all these things have happened to me. And I think it's good to go a little bit and ask yourself some basic questions. Could I have been better at this? Should I have done that? But in all my pursuits of that, I would come up empty. I would constantly come up with Lord, just show me what I did wrong, because I want to fix it type thing. And he never would. He never showed me what I did wrong, except for just this concept of, can you trust me, in the midst of it? And it was a battle, but learning things like, I actually reevaluated everything in my life, but learning simple things like Romans 8:28, where if you've been a Christian for a while, you know it by heart. He works all things together for good to those who love him, to those who are the called according to his purposes. And so really, really trying to grapple with how this could be good for me and my kids. It really was an eye-opener for me that this could actually be good for me. And when I went, you guys are seeing a lot of the things tonight that the Lord has really impressed upon me. And it is that in the mid, and what I really want to talk to you guys about was just the idea of worshiping God in the midst of wherever you're at. In other words, we tend to compartmentalize worship sometimes. Like, okay, we're here in a group, we're all together so we can worship God now. And the reality is, God actually looks at your life as worship. Amen. And the negative, the positive, all of it is worship. Yeah. If you have a mindset to honor Him, you are worshiping God whether you think you're a success or a failure. Because I actually started to think I was the biggest failure in the world, and it was like, I was like, God, I should just keep my mouth shut, and because I have nothing to say to anybody, and I'm a failure. I'm a failure as a husband. I must be a failure as a dad. But the Lord, I think, kept opening my eyes to the fact that that His process often is going to take us to a place where you can't open your mouth and really sing with a heart of joy. And it was in those moments I had to go, do I even worship God? But yet what God accepts as worship sometimes is the fact that we don't even know where else to go, because we know that He's the only one who has the truth, and He is the truth. So the idea of departing from Him is the only thing we won't do, even though we have no song in our heart, we have no joy, and for me, I had to really see that God accepted me at my lowest, and it kind of revolutionized my life. It freed me from so many things, which I was just telling Paula earlier. I feel like I came back from the clinic in 2015. I was there 6 months getting treated, and which, just being away from my kids was a really, really tough thing. But I knew in my heart that if I didn't get help, that I wasn't going to make it. I was about 40 pounds lighter, and when I went down there, they told me my gut was shutting down, so I wasn't absorbing any nutrients. So just learning that I had to trust God for every single thing was kind of it kind of revolutionized my life, and it kind of freed me, because I also was aware that, and they told me, you're not going to go another year. You might have a year left, but your body's shutting down. So like, if you see me now, I might look old or whatever, but I was 40 pounds lighter, and I had people tell me now I looked like a walking corpse. Or I looked like, I've had people who wouldn't tell me then, they tell me now, but it's okay now. But the whole thing to me just opened my eyes to and I'm going to read you these verses in 2 Corinthians, and but it opened my eyes to the idea that that glorifying God and worshiping Him can be just enduring the very thing He's put in front of us, the hardship, the difficulty, the relationship that's gone bad, the job that you just lost, just so many things, a loved one that's passed. It's enduring that and still loving the God around, who's set this whole universe in motion. And it's freed me in so many ways to even to forgive. I had to forgive my ex because I knew, well, I realized this when I was at this clinic, that I was at a roadblock in my healing. I could only get so far. And what the thing that it was a non-believer who said to me, and I know it was the Lord because it came so powerfully, I couldn't even respond. But this woman said to me, you are not going to heal. And she didn't even know, she barely knew who I was. We said hi in this clinic. And she must have heard something, or she surmised from maybe the way I was probably a little depressed all the time. But she said to me, until you forgive the person that's hurt you, you're not going to heal completely. And it was true, because I was angry at the time when she said that, because I thought, she doesn't know my life. She doesn't know what I've been through. She has no clue what's been done to me. And the idea that I'm just going to forgive, it's not that simple. But I went home, and that night I was on my bed, and I just broke out into tears. And it was, I know the Lord was just showering me with a sense of, just let it go. and forgive her. You don't have to like the situation. You don't have to think it was best, but just forgive her. And that was very transforming. And I'm not saying it all happened in one moment, but it started powerfully in that moment. And probably within 2 to 4 weeks, it didn't mean anything to me in a sense. There was a sense in which God took the meaning of that away. I was no longer hurt by it. All that hurt that was buried inside of me, God just took it all away. And really, it freed me to pray for my ex and to begin to see that she was very broken, and that what she was doing wasn't done to me, but in a sense, it was trying to deal with her own struggles, her own hurt, and that's what she was doing. But God showed me at the same time that He wasn't doing it to me; He was doing it for me. And I had to grapple with the thought that how could this be for me? This losing your wife, losing my business was on the edge. I own a construction company. My business I couldn't even run my business. I had to take 6 months off. And by the grace of God, I had someone working for me who was a believer, who actually maintained the jobs we were doing. And I would fly home once a month and try to do contacts on the phone, but it was tough because I was so sick. But sorry, I'm probably going over, but I'm going to read these verses and then try to put it in context. He says in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 7, "But we have this treasure in jars of clay to show that the surpassing power belongs to God and not us." And what hit me is God. I mean, think about when I thought about clay. Clay it's everywhere. It's in the ground. It's a very cheap commodity, and things made out of clay are not very expensive. They break easy. I'm thinking God has put an amazing treasure in us, and he did it for a reason. He did it to reveal His own greatness and power, so that even when you're broken, you're glorifying God because He's manifesting Himself. And that was like a powerful thought for me at the time, because I didn't have a lot to say. I didn't really have a song in my heart, but the idea that my life was somehow still glorifying God, that was powerful to me, and it was freeing to me too, because I had to let go of control in my life, and I realized after a while you're kind of like, well, what am I holding on to? Because He can take it away in an instant if He wants. And so what I just wanted to encourage you guys is just to recognize that every moment in your life as a believer is bringing worship to God. So you don't have to maintain it in a formal context or getting together, but God is pleased with you, with your life, with your hardship, with your sorrow. And you glorify Him. When I think about the word worship, if I said to you, hey, give me another word for worship, and a single word, you'd probably come up with the word glorify. It's probably very closely related. How do we glorify God? And so my context for worship has blossomed in a way that yes, I see myself in many ways as a failure if I look at myself too closely. But when I understand that God loves to put Himself in jars of clay and to reveal Himself through broken clay, and it's a pretty cool thing. And I realize, wow, and I realize too, my life becomes a picture for people around me, and whether it's not this thing that I wanted it to be, this really great business is profitable and a healthy marriage and kids who just love God. What I find is God's in the mess too, and He loves revealing Himself in messes, and part of it is we have to get comfortable with the mess too, and what that does is it takes away fear, because the fear of failure is gone for me. It's like, I'm not saying I don't ever struggle with it, but I feel like in many ways, well, I already did that. I already failed. So anyways, yeah, I just want to encourage you with that, and then just realizing that in this, where am I? He says, for we who live are always being given over to death for Jesus' sake, so that the life of Jesus may be manifested in our mortal flesh. And the only way I'm going to tie this back to Romans 8:28, the idea that your hurts are for your good, that all your sorrows are for your good, they're ultimately for your good. You might not see it in the moment, but they're for your good. Yeah. It's going to free you. To love and serve others, and it gives you a compassion for others in a new way, in whatever you've experienced. But just learning, God breathed Romans 8:28 into me in a whole new way, and I realized that there isn't one thing in any day that happens to me that isn't for my good. So if I believe that, it's one thing to know the doctrine. It's another thing to really believe it and walk in it. And knowing now that when I catch myself because I lost a deal or this didn't happen, I start going, wow, this is for my good. Even though I don't see it in this one moment in time, it's for my good. And that frees me to let go of that thing quicker and to go back to just being thankful. Right. Because praise always comes from a thankful heart, right? Yes. So anyways, that's what I have. Thank you.